columns, and I will try to walk you through what we're going to do here. So number one, the reason I asked you to do two separate entries here is because you've got some of it from box 1 and some of it from box 3. And we're going to treat them differently for Pennsylvania tax purposes. Anybody remember from this morning what I said about savings bond interest and its taxability in Pennsylvania? Federal savings bond interest is not taxable in Pennsylvania. It's taxable federally. Any box 3 amount is taxable federally and not taxable in Pennsylvania. So you've got this amount from box 1, this amount from box 3. If we had Pennsylvania tax return forms in here, I could show you that right now, if you don't make any changes on this, TaxWise is going to put this $48 on the Pennsylvania tax return. Because, and if you read this page, if you don't do it now, you can read it when you get home. Fundamentally, anything you put in this column, TaxWise assumes is taxable to both the federal and the state unless you tell it otherwise. So we know regular interest is taxable in both places. We don't have to do anything with that. But the federal stuff we know is not taxable in Pennsylvania, so we got to go to this middle column and tell TaxWise this $48 isn't taxable in Pennsylvania. So we put a minus sign in the plus minus column. And the $48 in the adjustment column. Oops. And this will now tell TaxWise to not put that $48 on the Pennsylvania tax return. I mean, this for some reason, people have a really hard time grasping this. So, if you are in that boat, don't feel badly. But if you read what they tell you on page D, is it D9? You may get a little bit of a different perspective. It may help you. It actually gives you some examples there. You probably will not see this. We see it a lot more than you do. Any amount that's in box 8 on a 1099 INT is municipal or state bond obligation interest. So if you had those Harrisburg incinerator bonds, and they were paying you interest, the interest would show up in box 8. And I don't know why they don't call this box 8, but they don't. But that's where you would put that interest. We see more of this than you do, but the difference here is anything you put in this column, TaxWise assumes is not taxable federally and not taxable to the state. So in the case of Harrisburg bonds, if there was a number here, that's not taxable in PA, it's not taxable federally, it's fine, you're done. On the page, if you don't know what NAB stands for, it's defined in the Pub 4012. The code for that would be E, and you'd be finished. If these were the state of California bonds, though, those are not federally taxable, but they are taxable in Pennsylvania. Then you would have to put a plus sign in here, add this amount to the middle column to tell TaxWise to indeed put it on the Pennsylvania tax return. But you won't see much of that. You probably, to the extent you see anybody with interest, you may see people with savings bonds or whatever. That's more common for us. So there's one other thing I'll draw to your attention, and we'll get to it when we do the PA lecture the next time, which is that Rose's W-2, although you'll notice she worked in New Jersey, her employer is a Jersey address, her home, her residency is Pennsylvania, and what's supposed to happen in that case is New Jersey is supposed to withhold Pennsylvania tax and send it to Harrisburg. What happens though with a lot of these small employers, particularly at the beaches, where you've got people who are not up on the fact that New Jersey and Pennsylvania have that reciprocal agreement, what will happen with some frequency is that they will mistakenly withhold New Jersey income tax. your remedy for that is not to say, gee, they made a mistake and put PA when you enter it, because if it said New Jersey here, what it would mean is the employer withheld New Jersey tax and sent it to Trenton. So this employee's account in Trenton would have the credit for whatever that is, $980, and care account in Harrisburg would be empty. So if you run into that situation, what you must do is file a non-resident tax return in New Jersey to claim a refund of the $980. You would get it all back. And you would then file a Pennsylvania tax return, but you won't have any withholding, so she's going to owe tax and probably some penalty for failure to pay the tax. If you really like doing this stuff, you can write a letter that goes along with the tax return, explain the situation to Harrisburg, and they will all pretty much always waiver the penalty. The problem you'll get into with this, though, is if you've got a taxpayer in this circumstance and it's April 10th, they're not going to get their $980 back from New Jersey for a couple of months, and they're going to need to put the $980 into Harrisburg by April 15th. So if you're going into that situation, one of the things I will train you on next week will be how to do a non-resident New Jersey tax return to remedy this. So since you will be trained on it, you will be covered from a liability perspective if you want to do it. It is really like 3 or 4 clicks on a New Jersey tax return. It is very simple. You don't want to do any other New Jersey tax returns. Don't do resident Jersey returns or anything else, but that situation you could remedy. And if you don't know how to do it, somebody at the site can help you, or you can call me and I can help you. But just be aware that if you see somebody who's a Pennsylvania resident who's working in Jersey and they have Jersey tax withheld instead of Pennsylvania tax withheld, you got to do something different than the usual. That's what I really want you to remember from that. So any other questions about this case? It is fairly simple. You now know how to start a tax return. Colin, did you give these guys the 4491 W's?
Are we still worried about the red marks on here?
Shouldn't. I think they're all gone.
And then 1040 worksheet 8.
Oh, right. You're right. They're not all gone. Okay. So this is red because of the healthcare question. I'll get into how to deal with this on the morning of the last day of training. But right now, all you need to know is, since I told you Rose had health care, you go down to the second page of the 1040 at line 61. There's a box that says full year coverage. You click that box, and you are done with the American Health Care Act for Rose.
Doesn't it happen if you click off on worksheet 1?
Worksheet 8.
Pardon?
Worksheet 8.
Worksheet 8, if you click off full, it should populate that.
You could, but you don't want to do that.
Oh, you don't?
You can. I mean, there's 6 different ways to skin a cat, but the only time I want you to get into worksheet 8 is if you have any situation where some part of the tax return had somebody on it who was not covered at any time during the year by health insurance. If you have a situation where every person who's listed in this tax return had health coverage in every month for the full year, click this box and stop. Worksheet 8, I only want you to get into if you have anybody who for any month of the year who resided in that household who was included in this tax return did not have health insurance. So if you got a family of 6 people, you're going to have 6 names on that worksheet 8. If they all were covered by health insurance, you click this box, you're done. And you see what happens, worksheet 8 gets grayed out. If you go fill it in, it's going to be part of the tax return. You're going to create complications you don't want to create. So the only time you want to use that is if you had a month somewhere where somebody didn't have health insurance. Okay?
I'm glad I came today. I'm glad I came today.
Yeah, well, this is all new to all of us. And I may recant that guidance later on after I actually play with this, but that's what they're telling us to do now. So now what I want you to do is consider the second case, Clara Fielding. And this is a real case. I rounded the numbers off a little bit and changed the name, of course. But it is illustrative pretty well of what I was telling you about. It's the one that's yellow. It's illustrative of what I was telling you about how people use this main information sheet. So we are going to do the same thing we just did here for rows, only I'm not going to walk you through it in painstaking detail. I want you to go through, open up a new tax return, and complete this. You do not have the first 3 digits for Clara, so I'm going to give you those so you know how to open the return.
You have to say rows.
The way this works is it's automatically saved. So you can save it and close it, or you can just close it. Either way, it's going to save your work. If you don't want to trust me, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you hit save. Okay, we've done this already. This is the Social Security number I would like you to use, although forget these last digits because I'm doing this in a different set of classes. So here you're going to do 401, and your last 6 digits are going to be the 6 digits of your ID you just created. So go ahead and bang through the interview process, create your tax return, enter the data that you have in the case, and we'll catch up when we get there.